Hey guys, it's Danny. Today it is time for another Q&A. I am going to be answering a few more questions that you guys sent in the comment section of my videos. And PS, you will see a repeat of the How I Water Vandas. The thing is, some of these questions were recorded last week, and then I had the idea to actually make a separate video for the Vandas. So that's why the repeat. But anyway, let us get to your questions. Okay, so let's start off with an interesting question. I will not read it completely. Gabriela is asking me how to assist an orchid to heal after it fell from a tree. And I have to say, this is quite an interesting endeavor you are doing. So I'm presuming you are living in the natural habitat of the Phalaenopsis. How cool is that, right? So, alrighty. Generally, when orchids of any kind are suffering, first we want to get rid of the things that drain energy, and those are flower spikes. Now, from all the structures of an orchid, the flower spike is not vital. It is vital to its reproduction, yes, but we're not interested in that. We're interested in maintaining the individual. So flower spikes, flowers, buds, whatever, they need to come off. I would suggest you cut the flower spike and let the orchid focus on reestablishing and creating vital structures. The vital structures are the leaves and the roots. So this is what we want to encourage and promote. Since your orchid already has a few roots, you can actually hydrate it. I have a video, I'll add it down below in the description, with how I like to promote root production on orchids that don't have many roots. I might actually do a fast version of that video because I understand it's a little bit long, but anyway, the bottom line of that video is to offer humidity around the area, try to maintain the existing roots moist, but not very wet. Chances are they will not appreciate extreme amounts of water because they've grown in the air on the tree. So hydration should be performed through the existing roots, either by placing the orchid on top of sphagnum moss, not potted, just on top, either by spraying the existing root system pretty much every day until new roots are being created. About the leaves, you are saying one of the leaves is dangling. Well, if it's still green, do not remove it. Chances are it still functions. Right now, the orchid needs to photosynthesize, needs to produce as much food and sugars as it possibly can. If we cut away the leaves, then we are impairing the evolution of the orchid. If the leaves are diseased and the disease is advancing, obviously you should cut the leaf. But if the leaf is perfectly fine, just a little mangled, that's okay. You don't need to cut it, just leave it on. And about light requirement and so on, obviously it's a Phalaenopsis orchid. It will not appreciate direct sunshine, so do not place it in full sun, but also don't place it in complete darkness either. A bright shade situation works perfectly. We need the orchid to photosynthesize, we just don't want it to go through extremes. Stressed orchids go through extremes worse than healthy orchids, especially if they're dehydrated. So that's how I would go about it for this orchid, and good luck. I hope you manage to save it. Chris Rossi is asking me if they can repot their orchid in a mixture of floral moss and mulch. I don't really know what floral moss is, but I think I have an idea. It's that dried, semi-dried, greenish type of moss. Okay, as a general idea, you can repot your orchid, and I'm presuming it's an epiphytic orchid because it's a Phalaenopsis video. So you can repot it in anything you want, anything you can imagine. If you want it to thrive though, you have to provide moisture and a lot of air at the same time, since we're dealing with an epiphytic orchid, and also your mixture should not be toxic or damaging to the root system. So with your mixture, if you can make it airy, that's great. If you can make it retain or provide some water to the orchid, that's great. And if it's not toxic or damaging in any way to the roots, that's perfect. I personally cannot tell you if it's damaging or not because I didn't try it, so I'm not the right person to tell you if mulch is toxic or not. I'm not the right person to tell you that. You'll have to find out or experiment. However, keep in mind that with whatever mix you are choosing, you kind of need to make it functional as well. As I was saying, orchids can be grown in anything you can imagine. Imagine growing it on your desk. Does it have air? Yes. Does it have water? Yes, if you provide water. Is the desk toxic to the orchid? Most probably not. It can grow on a desk. Problem is, are you there to constantly mist it or water it? Will the desk be spoiled? Do you really want to have an orchid growing on a desk or not? Those are questions that you kind of need to answer for yourself, because the setup can be a lot of work if it's not done in accordance to your preferences and your lifestyle, and with a little bit of thought before it. So think about your environment, if it's humid, if it's dry, if it's warm, if it's cold, if you need a medium that will retain more water, or a medium that will just drain very, very fast and dry very fast? Those are the questions that you need to answer to yourself, not if you can repot an orchid in a certain thing. You can, absolutely, you can do whatever you want. Just think if it's functional, if it's bad for the orchid, if it provides what an epiphytic orchid needs. Our top has a question regarding his Vandas. Apparently the root tips or the roots just keep getting burned or have dark patches. And why does that happen? Well, first of all, yes, I think you're right in checking your water supply. It might just be hard water. If it's not the hard water, make sure you don't over fertilize. You might actually add too much fertilizer for your tap water. With tap water and any fertilizer, it is a good idea to use half or even less than the recommended dosage, because tap water already has calcium carbonates and magnesium in it, so it's already a little bit mineralized. Other than that, make sure that the roots are not getting physically damaged. So here is an example. This is a root that grew at a very weird angle from my Vanda here. And whatever I do, I keep bumping it and touching it to other things. Right now it's touching the other Vanda. When I get it to water, or actually in my older watering system, it used to touch everything, the wall and so on, and the roots just got damaged. This is physical damage, and it can look kind of scary and it can look like a burn, but it's not. It's actually physical damage. So your Vanda might actually just get damaged when you water it or when you handle it. You have to think about that as well. And regarding the cold, I don't think it's cold damage, to be fairly honest. But of course, if you know you are growing your Vandas in a very cold room or environment, yes, you should up the temperature just a little bit if you can. Vandas are warm growers. They can handle the cold pretty well, but they will just not grow that fast and possibly not bloom in the winter time. You're also asking if I think Vandas can work potted in bark. For some people they can. I wouldn't do it, because every time I would need to change the bark, I would have to detach it from the roots and massacre the root system. So I don't want to go through that, especially with the Vandas. I've gone through massacring the root system of my Vandas. It was not pretty, so I have a bad experience with that. No more bark or something that I need to detach every 2 years from my Vandas. But I think it can be possible. People do it, but Vandas are not really known for growing in pots. So with this one, you're gonna have to test it out and decide for yourself. I personally wouldn't do it, that's what I'm saying. Brian is asking if he can plant his Vanda seedling in leca and if he will be able to adjust. Well, the answer I think will depend on the person. I will have to tell you, I'm not sure about that, because I had issues with Vandas in leca. It might have been me not treating it correctly or my environment. If you will ask somebody else who grows Vandas in leca, they will tell you, sure. But you're asking me, and I had a bad experience with Vandas, so I cannot tell you, sure, put it in, it's gonna work, because it didn't work all that well for me. I can tell you how my Vanda seedlings are grown. You can see one right there. I have them in little baskets with coconut fiber, and I'll link it down below to my video in which I actually build or actually assemble this type of basket. You will see there exactly how my Vanda seedling is potted or basketed, because yes, I do have a few Vanda seedlings. They're not the tiniest deflasked seedlings, but they are at least 3 years away from blooming. So yes, they are seedlings. So yeah, sorry, I cannot really be very confident with leca and Vandas due to my experience. You can obviously try. On paper, it doesn't look bad, because semi-hydro or leca mediums in general are very airy, but it has to work with your environment. It didn't work that well with mine. I am hesitant. You can try though. Catherine is asking what you can use for a small pot, because she has a mini orchid and all of her containers are big. Well, you can use one-time use cups like I have here. I just punched in some holes with the soldering iron. Here's another one, another example for you. And I know I'm not showing you the best of orchids right now, but I usually use these containers for orchids that are just very tiny or recovering and so on. Yes, of course, you can use one-time use cups, whatever you want actually, as long as you provide some ventilation and drainage holes. And you'll find these, of course, at the supermarket, and they're cheap as well. And for my last question, a viewer asked me how often I water my bare root orchids and by what method. I think you're referring to Vandas because it's a Vanda video here. I don't actually have any bare root orchids. They're all either potted in semi-hydro, either basketed. My Vandas in the past were in those transparent pots with just a few strands of microfiber. And yeah, I did consider them bare root. Nowadays though, I'm not sure if it's politically correct to say that my Vandas are bare rooted. They're in baskets, And the roots can dangle, yes, but they have a little bit of coconut coir around the roots. Doesn't do all that much, to be fully honest, but that's okay. I don't need it to retain a lot of water, just to keep the water inside, not evaporate so fast. So yeah, you decide, are my Vandas bare rooted? I think they're not nowadays, but hey. And how I water them? Well, I am going to demonstrate right now. And that is pretty much it, because my Vanda basket has a solid floor. See this? So there's a little bit of water left there that is available for the roots to pick up, so I don't actually need to soak them because the water is already there. It's pretty much a fast soak. Now in the summertime, it might change. I'm not entirely sure. I hope not. Right now, this is enough to keep me going for the next 3 days or so, at least. And that's pretty much how I water all of my Vandas. If the bottom of my basket was not flush, was not full, I could not do this because the orchid would drip everywhere, but right now it's not dripping at all. And that's how I water them. Again, in summer, it might change really because it's very hot. But there we go. Alrighty then, these have been the questions for today. Hope you've enjoyed it. And if you have other questions, just leave them in the comment section and I'll try to answer them in my next video. So you know the drill. If you've enjoyed this video, give it a thumbs up. If you hated it, give it a thumbs down. Subscribe to my channel for regular orchid videos and don't forget to turn on notifications so you never miss a video. And with that said, I'll see you all next time. Bye!